Good evening, everyone. So welcome to Blend Mode Hard Mix. I'm Janet Haynes of the RPS Digital Imaging Committee. We'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you all this evening and glad to see so many of you have taken the time to join us. Those of you who have been along to DI webinars before will know that we do a few housekeeping things to start off with. So bear with me, please, while we just go through one or two things for those of you who perhaps haven't done a webinar with us previously. First of all, it's worth saying that this is being recorded, and anybody who has booked in for this particular event will get a link. So you and those that perhaps haven't been able to join us will get that link in the follow-up email that comes out within a couple of days of us completing this session. That will be available to only those that are booked for a couple of weeks. Then after that, we're going to open it up to the public because we think that this particular topic would be very popular. However, as Joe quipped earlier, seeing as the subject is AI, it will probably be out of date by then anyway. So bit of fun there. So for this event, we've turned on closed captioning for the benefit of those people who need it. If you want to turn that off, you have that control yourself on your screen. But if you are using a tablet and you find that a difficult process and you need some help, use the Q&A button icon that's at the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen if you're on a tablet, and just ask for the instructions and they'll get sent to you. For this particular Zoom meeting, we have a special question and answer feature. So again, referring to this Q&A icon that's at the bottom of your screen, or the top if you're on a tablet, you can ask questions at any time just by typing in whatever your question is. At the end of the presentations, then we will answer your questions if they haven't been answered during the course of the actual presentations themselves. So there will be an opportunity for you to ask those questions of our presenters tonight. And we invite as many questions as you like, but obviously we are on a bit of a time limit. Webinar is perhaps a little different. This particular webinar is perhaps a little bit different to our normal program that we do. To start with, we've got two speakers instead of one. And also there's a little bit of fun that we're going to bring into this particular meeting, because we're going to ask you questions in the form of a poll as we go through. And you're going to be able to judge for yourself what that answer is. And we're going to see what the swing, what the variometer tells us through the course of the evening and how you feel about certain things that we will discuss. So I think that's going to be a little bit of added fun that we can all engage in and enjoy with. But the one thing I really, really do need to stress to you all is that what we're doing here tonight as the Digital Imaging Group is only for fun. It by no means reflects what the RPS may decide to do about AI. It may influence them if they're online and they're listening or engaging with this. Hopefully there might be a little bit of influence that we might have, but it isn't us that will make any decisions about the AI. That will happen with the RPS globally, with the CEO and with the board, I should imagine. So we're doing it for fun. All our polls and questions, etc., will be for fun. So that, really is essential that you understand that this is by no means the definitive version from the RPS. Okay, so let's get going. I will do a bit of screen sharing. Right, blend mode hard mix. The whole premise of this talk when we put it together was to say, okay, we've got this contradiction of traditional photography and a lot of people quite understandably feeling very uneasy about the influence or what will happen when AI becomes more dominant in our photography. Should it or not? Should we be embracing change? Well, my reaction to that is if we don't embrace change, we're the dinosaurs. However, we do have to respect other people's different views. So it's trying to find where those thresholds are. How can we accept or deny AI and find that line that's going to keep us comfortable about protecting our traditional photography? So tonight we're sort of having a little look to see if we can seek a solution. But first of all, I want to just go back to 1996. This is the first Digital Imaging Group magazine when the Digital Imaging Group started. That was a group of people who'd bought into digital very, very early on. Some of them were just simply taking their slides, scanning them in and working on the computers with them. Others were starting to invest in more digital equipment. So we go back 1996 and look what's being said down here in the bottom left-hand corner, the digital dilemma. And this, I'm going to just give you a moment to read. So what I find amazing about that statement is that's 27 years ago, and 27 years ago, this was the quote, I picked this up from the Digit magazine, from the then president of the RPS, Bob Moore, and that stands today just as much as it did 27 years ago. So where digital was seen as the big bad brother on the horizon, now, let's face it, 90% of us are digital, maybe even higher, and it's the norm. But at that point in time, it was seen as a threat. Then we move on slightly to spring 1997. And here again, I picked this up out of the Digit magazine. And quite evidently, when you read those words, somebody had obviously put in a panel of digitally created images into distinctions, and they'd had a problem with it because as you can read there, the panel members admitted they didn't know anything about digital imaging and they abstained from voting. So much ever so similar to the issues that possibly we're facing now. And here is the late Sir George Pollock, still again in summer 1997. And you'll notice that things are progressing quite quickly, just as they have been with the AI. But here's Sir George Pollock saying again, exactly the same thing. Where do we draw this line? How do we draw this line? And that really is the challenge that we're facing again today. So this evening, we've got two speakers for you, and I will introduce both of them as we go through the evening, but you will probably know Joe Houghton because he's quite well known to us. He will do the second presentation, but we're going to start with Simon Newlyn. Now, Simon may not be a name that some of you know quite so much, but he is a keen photographer, an early explorer of new photographic technologies. Having worked in the communications industry, he's fascinated by how the AI-generated image debate is developing. In particular, Simon has been studying the photographic developments attributed to Mid-Journey that cause unease amongst many photographers. So, Simon, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, and over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So let me kick off and say good evening and welcome to all of you outside the UK. If, like me, you have been watching a continuous flood of AI headlines over the last few months, you might be forgiven for thinking that the voices of Armageddon appear to be getting all the coverage. However, when it comes to photography, I think a more rational and calmer question might be, what impact will AI have on photography? In particular, I'm referring to generative AI, where through the use of computers, we can now turn text into images. Right now, we appear to be on a photographic roller coaster, and many of these computational images are being presented as photorealistic. AI-generated images are certainly not traditional photographs, but some of these pictures are appearing as a form of photographic image without a clear name or definition for this type of work. However, research soon reveals that people are trying to give this form of image making a name. The first, from a professor of photography, is synthography. An internet educator has suggested synthetic photography. A respected war photographer has created a specific name for computerized images used within an editorial context, post-photography AI reportage illustration. And an award-winning artist and photographer has popularized a possible name originally suggested by a Peruvian photographer and calls it promptography. 4 possible names and perhaps more suggestions to come. While you may hate the very idea of a computational image being referred to as a photograph or photographic, let's take a look at what's really happening now in the very fast-moving world of generative AI as it interfaces with digital photography today. The on-screen graphic tries to identify the major elements, players, and topics in this debate without giving any particular ranking to any one group or subject. All these groups have positions, views on and about AI, but, as is to be expected, these interests are all working at different speeds and in some cases in different directions. Right now, this is all very much work in progress. However, of immediate interest to us is the folder at the top left of your screen, marked Text to Image AI. It is the one area that appears to be moving at the fastest speed, and the one that also appears to pose the biggest threat. While all categories from this table have to be considered, the AI developments of immediate interest to photography and photographers fall into 3 categories: hardware, digital post-production, and generative AI image production. At present, we can accept the AI developments in the first category. But interestingly, in conversation with software engineers, they already regard smartphones as computational photography. In the second category, the development of generative AI-driven tools and functions within image editing programs may now be of concern. But in the third category, generative image production, the concept of text-to-image generation is the controversial bit, and it is certainly not traditional photography. Looking to the future and trying to avoid crystal ball predictions, where are all these developments taking us? There is no question that AI as used in photographic hardware and software will increase, and that small innovative startups will present even more ingenious uses for this technology. Growth of text-to-image systems will also rise significantly, with the AI Tool Guru website currently reporting 231 photographic, video, and illustrative tools now available. Turning to research and employment. At the moment, major academic research into computational photography is being undertaken in India, Japan, US, and most certainly China, with many scientific papers and scripts being published in the last 12 months. While this research concentrates on capturing images for scientific use, an embryonic handheld lensless camera has been showcased. I have to stress that it is a very, very early prototype that relies on both GPS and AI technologies to operate. But it's the sort of development we might expect to see more of in the not too distant future. Turning to employment, the employment website Azuna, who run the job seekers search engine, reported in March this year that they had seen employers now asking for in-front-of-screen creators to work on creative AI projects. Further, Azuna strongly recommends that people working in the creative sector learn their way around some of the AI systems now operating. And legislation. A key player in the future will be governments, who we might expect to establish AI regulatory frameworks. In Europe, for example, the AI Act is expected to be passed into law by the end of the year. China is also hoping to enact its version of AI regulations by the end of the year. In the US, 7 companies involved with AI have voluntarily agreed to initially watermarking AI material to help combat disinformation and deepfakes. And in the UK, the AI Foundation Model Task Force has been established to advise government on the safety of AI. And we are also to hold a global conference to discuss AI in the autumn. What does this mean for photography? Well, the first or initial initiative appears to be a watermark or AI usage statement when AI has been used to generate commercial images and materials appears to be the first initiative. Next, governments appear to be concentrating on the risk AI poses to key industries and sectors. And as far as I can tell, the generative AI providers are going to have to comply with, I quote, transparency requirements, end quote, when it comes to regulating their operations. Returning to my central question, what impact will generative AI have on traditional photography? I believe that AI-generated images are already leading us into a situation which I might describe as boundary creep, as these images increasingly start to look like traditional photographs. Let's take a look at some boundary creep examples. First up is the work of American photographer Joss Avery, who started to post a series of photographic portraits to his Instagram account in October 2022. After his portraits attracted a large Instagram following, he decided to come clean, admitting that his images were in fact AI generated, but in his words, human finished portraits, as he took the work into Photoshop to complete each image. Needless to say, favourable comments about Avery's work soon turned into polarised comments. But the point is, the boundary between traditional and AI-generated images had been crossed. Next are two photographs that were entered into two different photographic competitions held this year in Australia. One is an AI-generated image and one is an actual photograph. One image was taken at the Gucci exhibition at the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney, and the image on the right shows an overhead drone shot of an Australian beach taken at sunset. And the winning image was the AI shot of the beach at sunset, while the shot taken by exhibition visitor Susie Doughty was disqualified, as according to the judges, any competition image created with AI was ineligible. A clear case, I think, of boundary creep, not to say confusion between real photographs and AI-generated images. Now, fast forward to February this year, and Vogue out of Singapore created an AI issue entitled Fashion Meets the AI Revolution, showing a triptych of images inspired by the theme of roots. Now move to this July, and Tatler Asia created background images in Midjourney and then married studio shots of real models into a fashion shoot that they call a collaboration between humans and machines. Just published by Glamour in Bulgaria, a set of images inspired by Barbie and all the current hype around the film. Again, these images were created in Midjourney. And finally, this month, the BBC, in what is a very good section about AI on their website, used photographic terminology about the creation of an AI image. So why does this happen? The fact that AI images are referenced as being photographs. Perhaps our immediate reaction to this type of image generation is to push back. Push back too hard, and I think we find ourselves retreating into a photographic cul-de-sac. Getting out of this cul-de-sac will be hard unless some form of space or release for the evolution of what I call experimental or computational photography is found. Now, a major player in the text-to-image AI generation service is Midjourney. There are now many text-to-image generators, but the reason I want to draw your attention to Midjourney is because it has a growing reputation for being able to produce photorealistic images, and one of the largest text-to-image generator communities on the internet, with 14.5 million registered users. Today, Midjourney version 5.2, the art of prompt writing has changed as its understanding of natural language has greatly improved. Use of a string of photographic terms is not always necessary to produce photorealistic images, as these prompts and images show. In short, it's got a lot easier to create your initial photograph. However, finessing it may still take some time. So the key to a great picture is a great prompt, and there are as many views as how to write a photographic prompt as there are YouTube videos now demonstrating how to create these images in Midjourney. Further, the American photographer and educator Phil Steele has recently produced a course on how to create just photographic images in Midjourney, which he calls synthetic photography. For the moment, the RPS describes computational images as being illustrations. Technically, this is correct, but these people are looking to and learning how to produce a photograph. All this, plus the boundary creep I have just shown you, I think blurs the lines between traditional and computational photography. Let's take a look at some more images selected at random, created in Midjourney. As photographers, it's easy to critique these images. My point is, A, to show that these images are more photographic than illustrative, and B, to stress that users of image generators, a public far wider than just the photographic community, are wanting to produce photographic images. There is a void or space that needs to be both defined and filled, and that, I think, is probably a genuine role for the RPS to undertake. How? Two things I think need to happen. As I've tried to demonstrate, some people now perceive some AI images as photographic. This, and along with the speeded up AI developments coming to photography, the advent of computational photography is happening. So therefore, the first thing the RPS, in its genuine role as a guardian of photography, both today and in the future, might or should perhaps consider is to give photographic images created by computational means an official name. Second, the RPS perhaps should also consider recognizing AI as a new but separate development in the evolution of photography. This classification, along with a distinct name, would again help to protect and maintain a boundary between the authenticity of traditional photography and what we might regard right now as experimental. Note the word experimental. Generative AI is far from perfect, but again, as I've tried to demonstrate, boundary creep is approaching at great speed. And if, as the experts tell us, the photographic quality of an AI image will also improve considerably. To sum up, AI and generative AI is moving into the world of photography at a faster speed than perhaps we appreciate. We should accept that computational photography will sooner rather than later come of age, and that a generic name for a computational image would help to maintain a boundary between, as I've said, the authenticity of traditional and the new developments of the experimental. I therefore believe it would be good to find a form of classification for computational photography sooner rather than later. Without a classification, all forms of photography will just merge into one genre, casually referred to by a wide public as photography. I suspect many of you would not argue for that tonight, but instead welcome a clear classification between the traditional and experimental, so that we might all learn from and build on the best from each. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Simon. We've actually now, on the end of Simon's here, we've got a couple of poll questions for you. So this is the first time you're going to get the opportunity to vote. The question will come up on the screen in one moment, and I'll read it out for you. And the idea is that you click on your screen, either your yes, no, or maybe, depending on how you feel about the question. So Rex, if you could pull up the first poll for us, please. Should the RPS find a name or classification for computational images? It's a single choice. You answer yes, no, or maybe. Okay, now we'll see the answer to that. Rex will pull up the poll for us. So 84% of our audience tonight think that yes, the RPS should, 3% no, and 13% quite understandably going, well, I'm not sure, maybe in the middle there. So that's the first question answered, Simon, for you that you posed us just now. The second question which we're going to put up for you: should the RPS recognise AI as a new but separate development, experimental genre in the evolution of photography? A little bit more difficult, this one, isn't it? So should RPS recognise AI as a new but separate development, experimental genre in the evolution of photography? Okay, as I suspected, not such a strong swing. Still 63% think yes, no 15%, and maybe 22%. So, you know, people are sort of thinking about this, which is exactly what we wanted you to do this evening, and trying to work out, what do I think about this and where is my boundary? So, Simon, thank you very much for posing those questions.
That's all right. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you very much indeed. So before we move on to the next session with Joe, what we would like to do is establish through another poll how many of you enter competitions. We're asking this question because we feel that those people who are competing will feel more passionately about the implications of AI than others that aren't competing, because maybe if you're not competing, you're happy to play, you're just producing it for yourself, and you're just going to experiment away. Whereas the people that are competing are saying, I don't want my traditional photography to be competing with AI. So we're going to pull up another poll and ask the question, how many of you compete in competitions? And in competitions, we're including things like awards, distinctions, club competitions, salons. So the broadest term of competitions, okay? Okay, right. So a very heavy proportion of our people online tonight compete in competitions. And that doesn't surprise me at all. I suspected that they were the ones that were really more sensitive about this issue, perhaps even find it more exciting. Who knows? But I quite thought that you'd be the passionate ones that would be wanting to be online tonight. So thanks, Rex. We'll pull that one down. Now, we're going to move on for some more fantastic information from Joe Houghton. Joe, some of you may know, he's actually one of our digital imaging workshop tutors. He's been training photographers for over 20 years, 10 of those as the Irish Nikon trainer, and more recently as an in-demand speaker around the world. Joe's written 3 books on photography and 1 on artificial intelligence. Joe is a university professor with teaching and learning qualifications from UCD Ireland, Harvard in the US, and Oxford in the UK. So Joe, it's lovely to see you again. Welcome. Over to you.
Thanks, Janet, and thanks, Simon, as well, for queuing everything up so well. I made a couple of notes on stuff that Simon had been talking about. I took the girls to see Barbie the other day. I think I was the only 60-year-old man in the audience. And while we were waiting for the trailers to roll, I kind of just leant around and I'd taken 4 girls with me. So I just took a kind of shot with my phone, leaning forward, just looking back at them along the row. And I noticed that I'd not turned my flash on. So the phone seemed to take a long time to take the picture. And I realized that what it was doing was taking a whole burst of pictures. And after about a second, it came back with this beautiful picture of the girls all perfectly exposed. Okay, now we're in a dark cinema now, okay, and I hadn't set a long exposure time or anything like that, but it had taken however many pictures it took and combined them all and then processed that in the phone and given me this photo of all the girls, beautifully lit. Okay, it wasn't a beautifully lit scene, but the photo was beautifully lit. So Mark's put in the chat there, can we avoid using the term photograph and image interchangeably? I don't know, is the answer. I don't know whether we can anymore. And this is one of the questions, isn't it? At what point does a photorealistic image stop being a photograph? Yeah. And if we're letting light in through a sensor, that's maybe, you know, onto some kind of either a plate or a film or a sensor or whatever it is through a lens. Yeah, that's one way of capturing kind of light and processing it and all the rest of it. But it seems to be that, as Simon said, the line is moving, the blurring of this line. You know, it used to be you let one lot of light in through the image to the sensor or to the film, and you develop that, and that was your photograph. But now we're combining multiple images in, and that's perhaps a photograph. And then the poll that we just had, and I wrote about this in the last Dig magazine. It's a small proportion of a small proportion of people. You know, photographers are a small proportion of the world's population. The rest of the world doesn't care whether it's called an image or an illustration or a photograph. It's a nice picture that looks real. Yeah. And if that's created in Midjourney, or it's created in Photoshop, or it's created in camera, whatever that means now, they don't care. The only people who care are people who are competing in photographic competitions. So this is the space that we're kind of playing in, I think, tonight, is how do we define and how do we set up rules? And David asked the same thing earlier on, David Lane. You know, how do we generate a set of rules that are going to distinguish between images that are somehow kosher and images that are somehow not kosher for being called a photograph, but might quite okay to be called something like a digital image, or a generated image, or an AI image, or whatever. And this is a very, very tricky situation, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and a lot of clubs and a lot of societies are thinking about this at the moment. Okay. So let me share my screen for a moment. So I have a photograph here of a young Asian lady. No, I don't. This is an AI generated image. This is not an image of a real person. This is downloaded from a website called Generated Humans, and it's a completely AI generated image. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few different photographic techniques, if you like, processing techniques, and then we're going to, at points during these techniques, just put another poll up and ask you a question, and see what answers come out. Okay, so let's just start with a light one, shall we? I'm in Lightroom Classic. Probably a lot of you know about Lightroom Classic, and if we go into the develop mode in Lightroom Classic, Lightroom, like many of the other tools now, has got some artificial intelligence baked into it. So the masking tools, okay? Now, I created these earlier on just to check, but I'll recreate them, okay? So I'll delete all these masks. So what Lightroom does when you load up a picture now is it automatically scans the image, and any people that it detects, it brings in down here. So we've got one person in the image, and we highlight that person, there it is. Okay. Now, if we click on that, it's now, it says, okay, I can mask, I can select for you out of the whole of the rest of the image, that person. This is AI, okay, working. So you're not doing this yourself, you're not brushing this in yourself or whatever. AI is just making this happen for you. But what we can also do is this. So there it's finding just her facial skin, her body skin, her eyebrows, the whites of her eyes, the iris and pupil, her lips, her teeth, her hair, and her clothes. Okay, so I can tell it now, create 9 separate masks. And you can see each of those masks is showing, if I hide the pins, each of those masks is showing, and I can go around and I can do certain things. So if I want to take, her body skin, for instance, and give her a little bit of a tan, very easy to do. Okay. And now, is this just editing? Or is this using AI in a way that means that, I'm somehow doing something that I shouldn't do with that image? Is it still a photograph? If indeed it was a photograph, I mean, it could be, this looks like it was taken in a studio, doesn't it? But it wasn't. It was just generated on a computer. But if this was created in a studio with a real person as the model, yeah, and I'd shot this through a camera with a lens on, then that's okay. But when does it stop being okay? At what point in my manipulations of this image does it stop being okay? Yeah. I can pick her clothes, okay? And I might actually pick her clothes and say, well, actually, I don't really want the feet, okay? So I'm going to brush the feet away, okay? But now I've got her dress, yeah? So what I want to do is maybe change the color of the dress. Okay, so I can move the hue, I can increase the saturation and stuff like that. We can change the temperature and the color and stuff. So we're changing. So this is no longer what I shot because I've now changed the color. Is that okay? I don't know. Okay. But this is AI. These are AI tools. These are artificial intelligence tools that we're using to do this. Okay, so that's kind of, Lightroom pretty easily. Now, here's not a very good shot of my daughter Grace a few months ago. Okay. And she just wanted a quick shot taking, and I did it, against the backdrop there of the kitchen doors and stuff. It's not well lit. I haven't got lights up or anything like that. But one of the things we can do now is we can link Lightroom with other programs, for instance. So let's drop this into Portrait Pro. Now, Portrait Pro, so it'll make a copy of this and then we edit the copy. Okay. So it's generating a TIFF file for a moment, and then it's going to bring that up in Portrait Pro. It just takes a few seconds. Portrait Pro is specifically aimed at portrait work. Okay, so it'll allow you to do things like sculpt the facial features. If you want to make somebody's face a little bit thinner, it'll do it for you. If you want to make their nose a bit longer or a bit shorter, or plump their eyebrows up or whatever, it'll let you do it. Okay, so all these kinds of things are happening. So here we go. So the first thing it does, and again, this is using artificial intelligence, is it's now going to analyze this face. Okay, and you can see it's already identified Grace as female. And what it's doing now is processing her face, and it's identifying all the key elements in her face. Her eyebrows and her mouth and her lips and her eyes and all the rest of it. And you'll see that in a second. Okay. There we go. So, in it comes. So all on its own, that's pretty amazing, the kind of pattern recognition and stuff. So what we're going to see now is, here's the before, and you can now adjust this if you want to. So, that's not quite right on her chin. I'll adjust that out a bit, and I'll adjust this line out a bit to here and whatever. So let's say that's okay. Okay. Now on the left is the version straight in from Lightroom, and on the right is the kind of slightly subtly already adjusted version that Portrait Pro, thinks you might want. Now look at the difference in her teeth, for instance. Look at her skin. Look at it's dark here. We've perhaps got, not particularly flattering light. It's softened the skin up a bit. It's giving her a little bit more shine. It looks to me like it's brightened the eye whites and clarified a little bit her pupils and stuff like that. Okay. So straight out the box, this is making changes. Is this acceptable? Can we put this into a competition, or have we gone too far yet? We'll see. Lighting and coloring. Okay, shut that door, please. Shut the door, please. I'm doing a talk. Shut the door, please. Shut the door, please. So, hide that. So if I want to affect the lighting, I can move this virtual light around and relight Grace from almost any angle that I want now. Okay. And we can change there's a modeling light, for this kind of, there's so many different possibilities here. We can scroll down a little further. Okay. And we can give her a little bit more accent on her cheekbones here. Now, this is completely after the fact. We're just completely changing these images. Okay. Want to sculpt her nose a bit more with light? There we go. We can put this stuff in. This is all now possible, and it's all possible after the fact. We've not used any lighting. We're just changing things later, and in a different way. Now, obviously, that doesn't look particularly good now, but this isn't a kind of retouching and editing kind of demonstration of how to make her look good. I'm just showing you that these tools now exist. Okay, we can give her makeup. We can give her eyeliner and mascara and all kinds of stuff that she never had before. Look at her eyebrows change with the mascara. Yeah. We can put blusher on her. We can put bronzer on her and change the colors and all the rest of it. Is this okay? So there's Portrait Pro. So Rex, would you bring up the first poll for us? Yeah, there we go. So considering what I've just shown you about AI, on a scale of 1 to 10, is this level of AI, the stuff I've just shown you, acceptable to you or not? So 1 is unacceptable and 10 is absolutely fine. So 24% of you say no problem. Yeah. And then we're coming back down. Some people say absolutely not. 6, 11, 22, 28, 38. So 40% of people would be in the bottom half there saying this is unacceptable. And then another 14% before we get up to the 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So, okay, right. So we'll close that. And I'll show you some more stuff now. Okay. If you're coming to the RPS talk tomorrow morning on the denoise shootout that I'm doing at 10 o'clock, here's an early preview of one of the images we'll be using. Okay, because I think this is quite a good image to show for this. So I shot this a couple of years ago on a hide shoot. It was a pretty miserable day, and my camera, my lens is a 150 to 600, 5.6 to 6.3, and I was shooting at fairly high ISO. What ISO is this? 10,000 ISO. Okay, at 260 mil. The Tamron lens. So if you look at the detail in the Pine Marten's fur, we've got a lot of noise, and there's, the fur is there, but it's not pin sharp, and it's not, every hair isn't clearly defined and delineated. Okay. So I'm going to fire up Topaz Sharpen. Okay. So again, it's going to make a copy of the image, and then it's going to drop it into Topaz Sharpen, and let's just see what we get out of Topaz Sharpen with this image. So again, we have to just wait for it to make the TIFF file and then fire up Topaz Sharpen, and you can't open Topaz up earlier because it just opens a second instance of Topaz if you try and do that. So we do have to actually kind of do this and wait. Yeah, I did grow up on Blue Peter, and kind of here's one that I prepared earlier. They always used to bring one out from under the counter, didn't they? But it doesn't quite work like that with this. Come on, Topaz. Yeah, there we are. It's coming in now. Right. And what Topaz does is it has various models of AI algorithm that it can use to process the image. Okay, so what we've got here, let me move over to the head so that we can see. And I'm going to go into 200%. Okay. So each of the models returns a slightly different looking image. So this one's the standard. Okay, and then this one here is motion blur, very noisy, out of focus, very noisy, and then too soft, very blurry. Okay, and if you click and hold, you can see the image before and after you've done the denoise. Now, if you look at the background, we'll see probably that there's quite a bit of difference there in the background from the noise perspective. Okay, but we've got motion. I don't know whether there was a whole lot of motion blur, but maybe let's try too soft, very noisy, something like that. See whether that gives us a better it's not brilliant. I mean, it's not getting rid of a whole lot of that noise, is it? So out of focus, very noisy, maybe. Aha, now that's a lot better, isn't it? Before, after. Okay, so out of focus seems to be the key one. So then let's try out of focus, very blurry, and down here we'll just try out of focus normal and see which one of those. Now, out of focus normal's not doing anything. Before, after. Now look at this fine detail of the hair just here. if we go in even closer, let's zoom into 400%. Okay. And go to the edge of that hair. Okay. Now you're getting individual hairs, follicles and things here. That's what I had in the original photo. I mean, there's no detail there. There's no individual hairs. Okay. So what we're seeing here is the AI algorithm adding stuff in to the image that didn't exist before. Because what it's doing is it's drawing on a huge data bank of other better photos of pine martens and of furry animals. And it's saying, this is a furry animal, and we're getting towards the edge of the animal where the fur is fine. So I'm going to interpolate that blurry mess there should be fine detail fur. And it's putting it in. And it's not there in the original image. It was there on the pine marten, but it isn't in the image that we captured on camera. Okay. So let's apply that one. Okay. So I apply that to the image, and it now processes the whole image with that. And it gives me back a TIFF file, which is now sharper, has no noise in it. Okay. So now I've got two images now, and I can compare those. We'll just close everything else down. Okay. And if I zoom in on both those images now, and we move out to the edge, yeah, that's 437, 500%. Okay. So there's the original image, and there's the new image with new detail that didn't exist before. Rex, time for the next poll. Same question. So, considering what I've just shown you in Topaz, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is fully acceptable. No, 1 is completely unacceptable. 10 is fully acceptable. So, score that for me. Right. So, kind of, you're still okay then. Yeah, this is okay. I heard that there was a photograph rejected from a club competition by a judge about 3 weeks ago, who got the PDIs and saw that the image had been edited in Topaz and refused the image because he said that Topaz was adding in extra information and that it disqualified them from the competition. So, I mean, of course, it depends on what competition. If you're putting it in an open, I suppose anything goes. If you're putting it in nature, you know, a lot of nature competitions say it has to be, you know, what was there. You can't add things, you can't take things away. Well, Topaz is adding. There's no doubt about it. It's adding things at maybe a micro level. It's not adding, you know, it's not taking away a whole big branch in front of the animal or whatever, but it's adding in detail that didn't exist before, not on your image. So again, when we come to start clarifying our rule sets for clubs and for competitions, where do we draw the line here? Where's the line? You know, the blurring of the line and the blurring of photographs and stuff like that. This is tricky, isn't it? Okay. Right, sky replacement. Let's have a look at sky replacement then. Chief of Grid, back here, and I'll go back to my talk. So this is a shot of Kinsale Harbour in Southern Ireland. So I'm going to drop this one into, what am I going to do in this one? On one photo raw. Okay, so on one photo raw AI 2023. Same thing, Lightroom always makes a copy, doesn't let you edit the originals, keeps the raw files kind of safe. So this is going to make another copy and then fire that TIFF file up into on one. Okay. Okay, so here's on one photo raw. The other thing is all these programs are being updated at a rate of knots. I tried most of these earlier on just to see, and I think 3 of the programs that I was opening today had all had updates since I last used them. So this stuff is really, at a rate of knots getting new stuff added in a to what can be done. Okay, so over here we've got sky. Okay, now On1 comes with lots of skies. So let's go for some cloudy skies or a sunset sky. Okay, there's more skies here. So what are we looking for? Long exposure skies, dramatic skies, cloudy skies, whatever. Okay, so we can have some different ones here, and then we've got different clouds that we can pull in. Okay, so let's say we want maybe that one. Okay, now we can move that up and down. So there's that sky image, and we can choose how much and where we want that sky image to kind of appear. Okay, so maybe we do something a little softer like that. We can change things like the opacity. So we've got the original sky. It's kind of just putting this on top of the original sky. Yeah, and we can move the edge and fade the edge and do all kinds of nice stuff there. Yeah, but if we go further down, we can also now apply that sky more or less to the foreground, the reflection. Okay, so here we are. So here's the reflection. So look, I can now apply that sky to the water at the bottom. Now, don't forget, this doesn't exist, this sky. It's another sky that's brought in. And I mean, this one is brought in. It's not even one of my skies. It's one of the On1 skies. Okay, so now you see I'm looking at that as the reflection, and I can shift the vertical on that as well to kind of make it match a little more because I moved it on there, didn't I? So that kind of perhaps reflects a little bit more now. Yeah, and we can also change the overlay on that sky, and if you're in, if you're Photoshop, you've probably seen these overlays before. So we can do different types of screening and there and stuff like that, and just bring that up more or less. Okay. So you can also import your own skies, or in this case, I'm just using one of theirs. Okay. So relatively easy to do. And then I'm sure you could go in and you could brighten the whites up and make it even more punchy and stuff if you wanted to. Okay, so that's sky replacement. So again, is that unacceptable? In which case it's a 1, or is that perfectly fine? In which case it's a 10. And maybe we should have added, we haven't done so, just answer the question as it's posed. But I wonder whether we should have kind of said for competition perhaps, but it's not. The question is as it is. Okay, is it acceptable? Now, very different story now, isn't there? The pendulum is shifting. 35% of you say this is unacceptable. Now, is it? I wonder, is it? And maybe kind of amplify this in the Q&A or whatever. Is this unacceptable because I used a sky that wasn't my own? Is it unacceptable because I introduced a new element that wasn't there, a different sky? Yeah. But then I introduced new elements when I did the new fur on the pine marten. Yeah. So, again, where's the line? Where do we draw the line? And how do we police this? How do we figure this out in club and in competition? And I mean, what are we asking judges for going forward? It's a nightmare. And I mean, I judge competitions fairly regularly as well. And I'm thinking, like, what do we do here? Because we don't have rules because the thing's moving so fast. 2, the technology is changing weekly at the moment. And how would we ever police it even if we could? Now, the next couple.
Joe, Joe,
Yeah.
some people have said, should we run that one again with the question being whether it's acceptable if it's your own sky? So we can do that. I can create a duplicate. In fact,
Quite happy to do that. Yeah, why not?
I've just done it. It will be called 9. Right. So this one, the one I'll launch now, will be if it's your own sky.
Okay, so is this acceptable if that was your own sky photograph? Okay, so 1 is unacceptable, 10 is acceptable. Okay, so that switches things around. So maybe it was the fact that it was not my sky then that really pushed the boat on that one. Okay, interesting. Mel, I'm never going to hear the end of this from Mel. We were talking before the thing, and and she was saying, like, I wouldn't be able to keep to time. And we're on 8:30, and I've got 2 more things to show you. So we will be another 5 minutes or so with me before Janet gets to wrap up. These are very short little videos that I'm going to play you. Okay, so I'll just play you one of these. So DragGAN is a new technology that's been out for about a month, maybe 2 months, or certainly it came to kind of the fore in those. Let me just play this and just see what you think. There's no sound, but basically you put 2 points on an image, and then it will morph the image. Now watch this. This is a 2D photograph, and the AI is rotating his head as if it was a 3D image. Okay, now flexible areas. Okay, so watch this. So we're restricting the area that's going to be affected now to his forehead, and then now we're going to add a point, and we're going to pull down his hairline. Instant hair regrowth. Yeah. Do it again. Bring it down a bit further. Okay. How about that? Now watch, I'll stop that one. Watch this one. A couple of seconds of this one. So we've got a lovely mountain scene. Now look at this. I want more in the foreground there. Okay. You want those mountains to be a bit higher or lower? Okay, we can do that. And it redrew the sky behind it, and it so here we are. We're going to add more hill. Oh, they're only little changes, aren't they? Well, I suppose it depends how far that hill away is. Amazing, isn't it? And it looks completely real, looks photorealistic. This stuff. Watch this one. And do you notice it's also growing the horizon as well? So the AI is taking account of the fact that the thing got taller both ways. Just amazing, this stuff. Just kind of literally drag and drop. Okay. And the last one is NVIDIA Canvas.
NVIDIA Canvas empowers artists with an AI assistant to paint landscapes quickly and easily. Simple brushstrokes with the intuitive material palette generate lifelike images in seconds, and preset styles modify the lighting and overall look of the resulting image instantly. We have been working on new capabilities to allow artists to paint even more amazing landscapes. With the latest upgrade to the AI model, Canvas paintings are not only 4 times higher resolution, but you'll also notice higher quality and more details in the image. We've also expanded the material palette with 5 brand new materials, such as flowers and straw, allowing you to paint a richer and more diverse set of landscapes. We can't wait to see what you can create.
Rex, last poll, please. So, is that 1, unacceptable, or 2, acceptable, or 10 acceptable. So 1 unacceptable, 10 absolutely fine. Right. So no, that's can't be doing with this. This won't do. Yeah, this is certainly not out of a camera, is it? This is all trickery and jiggery pokery. Yeah. Okay. I think, Janet, I am done. So do you want to come back on and wrap things?
I'm here. I am. I mean, I've seen a lot of that before, but watching it again tonight, it's just like, my goodness, where are we? How do we get through this?
How do we get through this? Yeah.
How it is just so impossible, isn't it? But it was interesting to see, particularly I thought that whoever asked that question and asked us to redo it, considering it was our own sky that we used, how that switched completely. So it's acceptable to do it with their own sky, but it's not acceptable to use it from the library. That
one sky could be from, you know, your holiday
exactly
in Spain, and you took that shot in the local reservoir or something, you know.
So I think it's been really interesting. I hope that everybody's really enjoyed this evening, because it is the first time that we've asked the audience to give us a view. You know, we've got lots and lots of questions here that we're going to go through in a minute, but it's the first time we've really engaged with the audience to say, tell us what you're thinking about this stuff. How do you get your head around it? It's just mind-blowing, quite honestly, isn't it?
Yeah.
So looking down the Q&As, we've got quite a lot of them, 40. So I don't think we're going to get through 40 questions, but we'll get through as many as we can. There are 1 or 2 on here, folks, that are statements rather than questions. So I'm going to actually try and pick the questions in preference to statements at this point in time. And then I will ask either Simon or Joe to answer the question. So, will the anticipated, this is from Richard, will the anticipated impact of AI be as great as the impact of modern digital editing, Photoshop, Luminaire, Topaz, etc., compared with the darkroom techniques of the 60s and 70s? I'm going to ask Simon that one, because he did touch on that basically, didn't he? Just briefly.
Personally, I believe, yes, it will be an amazing transformation. I know that sounds like a leap of faith, but I've been watching AI over the last 2 months, and daily there are new developments. So yes, I think it will be as transformational as you suggest.
Okay. From David, I wonder how clubs, RPS, BPE, FIAP, etc., are going to agree a common set of rules and guidelines to interpret them in the same way. It is a statement, but I felt it was quite a valid statement. Obviously, the RPS are going to have their position, but we can't have too many variations on the theme, can we? So hopefully the RPS will talk to particularly somebody like PAGB, where we've got a good relationship, and the BPE, etc., and see if we can't get some universal answers to this question, if there is one. Let's see, the next one from Richard. It appears that we need perspective. A club member asked this question a month ago regarding print competitions within the club. I know the competition started pre-digital, but I was wondering if analog prints, Silver Gelatine, Van Dyke and the others, were allowed and welcomed, or is it purely digital these days? Therefore, for any competition, do we need to define how the image is made or printed? Do we need to level the field?
Wow.
Big one, that one. I'm not sure that we can answer that one. Anybody want to have a go at it?
There's so many questions there, though, aren't there, Richard? I mean, there's kind of like how it was made, what, with a camera or with a computer, or a bit of both, and then how was the print itself made as well? I mean, so there's all these different things, aren't there? But I mean, this is the thing, I think, you know, and that goes back to David's question about the club rules, and I know that the RPS are wrestling with this at the moment. Is what rules can we put in place, and what are the lines going to be? And if we put rules in place today, I mean, the RPS released a kind of holding statement, what, a month ago, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
something like that, on, you know, an initial kind of stance on AI. But it was a fairly general holding statement. And the thing is that even if we put something out that was definitive, like tomorrow, how long is it going to remain definitive? Because the capabilities are changing so fast. So it's a moving target. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. This is a statement, sort of a statement question from Alistair Howe. How are the RPS clubs and anyone going to police AI?
Yes.
I mean, this is the big question.
Yeah.
It seems as futile as prohibition in the 1930s. Yep, I go with you, Alistair, on that one. I'm looking for questions rather than statements.
Can I just say that I do hope that clubs are not going to throw out AI wholesale, and that perhaps they have, to answer the print question, so to speak, perhaps they have an AI competition. So you know everything is illegal happening in one competition, so to speak.
Just like the open competitions at the moment allow, you know, people putting in textures and, you know, adding in different elements into pictures and stuff like that. Janet, are you Digital Imaging Group's doing something on this, aren't they?
Yeah, we'll finish with that.
Right, we're finishing with
don't
yeah.
let the secrets
cat
out the
out
bag
that
first.
bag.
Yeah, okay. This is a simple one, but Mary wants to know what phone you have. Obviously, she wants one that takes pictures in the dark as well.
It's just an iPhone 12. It's nothing special. So yeah, but it just takes a whole burst and combines them. Yeah, amazing.
Simon's statement is it's not just competitions, but professional photographers must feel threatened by AI. They must. They really must.
Yeah.
They seem to be jumping. Is somebody else moving this thing on me? Because that one jumped on me then, just as I was about to read it.
You want to get rid of the ones that you've asked, Janet, and then it will be easier.
Well, okay, I'm scrolling down them.
Scroll down.
Yeah, but that's not the.
That's not the way it works, right? Okay. Comment photo portrait pro from Clive Haynes. It simply speeds up what we could be doing in Photoshop.
Yeah. So if it's quicker in a tool like Topaz or Portrait Pro, does that make it more or less acceptable than if we did it the hard way in Photoshop? Or, you know, I don't know about that
one. Next time that photograph will change, the photographer will change the EXIF data. See, so, you know, if we're going to try and police it with the EXIF data, there's another point there that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Lois is asking, interesting that on balance, we think improvement of an image of a furry creature is perhaps more acceptable than of a human. Is that because of the techniques used or the emotional connection to the subject? I don't know. I don't know with that one. Anybody got any opinions there?
Yeah.
Are we happy to change the animals more than the people?
Well, maybe. Yeah.
I think probably yes.
Strange that though, isn't it, when it's put like that and you think about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. William says, should the AI line not be drawn up to the point where the competent retoucher can enhance an image? Should the AI line not be drawn up to the point where a competent retoucher can enhance an image?
It sounds like the you know, the legal kind of definition of, you know, was it the normal person or whatever. So what's a competent retoucher?
Yeah.
You know, 10 years ago, what was a competent retoucher compared to a competent retoucher today with the tools that are available today or tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, David, can you define acceptable in your poll question? Does this mean acceptable in the photography competition or acceptable in Instagram or acceptable for a birthday card I'm creating?
Yeah.
No is the answer there to that one. We were being pretty loose with our questions, I think, and that's a fair comment to say. Right, some of these are relational to the polls, so it's not easy. how about not to a competition, but to a greetings card? So somebody's saying, yeah, okay, if we're creating a greetings card, then it becomes acceptable to use AI more than it does if it's going in for competition. So again, fair comment on that one. We'll all play with it for doing things like that, won't we? Michael is saying I would vote differently depending on whether the image was for relatives or for
competitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be selective when we use our AI, is what I'm seeing. From Paul Herbert, what could the criteria for acceptability be that if the photographer can do the editing without AI, that it might take a little longer, then using the AI tool might be okay? So it's very, very similar to the one that Clive answered quite earlier. If you could do it yourself, does that make it acceptable? You've just used AI to make it a bit quicker. Yeah. I personally think yes, but Simon,
how do you test that?
Yeah, and how do you police it?
So you enter a competition. Please come and show me your skills on the computer before I judge this photograph.
Yeah. So Tim Harvey, what about using the healing brush in Photoshop?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these tools that we're just so used to using all the time are changing our images. They're replacing pixels. They're adding stuff.
Yeah. Guy Davis is making the comment, and I've seen my dad do this. Changing the sky could be done in the dark room.
Yeah.
So again, there we are. It's all so difficult, isn't it, to work it out? Nobody used to question when people put stuff in and out in the dark room, I don't think, did they? Or was that just my memory of seeing my dad do it? I don't know. Oh dear.
Interesting point by Andy, 2042. The RPS shouldn't go it alone in defining or recommending new standards, because I mean they had Adobe in a few weeks ago, didn't they? Doing a talk.
Yes.
So I think they are the RPS are casting that net, and trying to discuss this with as many people who have an interest as possible. Yeah.
So Phil Dunbar, are photographic competitions going to have to separate smartphone photography from straight digital? Then do you separate film photography? Are we going to have to send in digital files for examination? And then how to stop those, I know, from removing the AI tags in the files?
Yeah, because you can do that very easily.
Yeah. I mean, it's all just such a muddle.
Yeah.
That it's just hunting out some really good. Right, Ray Duffel. I know I need to sharpen an image for my prints. So do I save up for a new lens, or do I buy new software?
Exactly. I made that point in one of my articles. The people who can afford a 10 grand lens get the perfect image of the Pine Martin. And those of us that can afford £1,000 on a lens or 500 on a lens or whatever, get the blurry one that we need Topaz to make reasonably acceptable. So that, again, it means the people who can afford the fancy lenses, they're okay then, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a point that I think is really serious, but not one that we can really address tonight. Joe is asking, is there still any point in trying for an LRPS? I think so, Joe.
Yes,
Joe,
I do.
Because the RPS will sort out where this line lies or what they're going to accept. At the moment, they are quite clearly saying AI shouldn't be part of a distinctions panel. So that statement has been made by the distinctions department. And I would feel very confident at the moment to say to you that you should still be doing your LRPS.
Because it develops you as a photographer.
Exactly.
It forces you to embrace ideas and to try things and to engage with people on the approval days and, other people to, what do you think of these images and which ones would work or whatever. I'm going out on Saturday on a photo walk. It'll be my first photo outing for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm so looking forward to just walking around with a camera. Yeah. And I don't care whether the images that come out are brilliant or not. And I will process them in Lightroom and on Topaz and all the rest of it. But I'm going to have a day out in the real world, pointing my camera at stuff and taking pictures with other like-minded people. And to be honest, isn't that what it's really about? Yeah.
Okay. Monty is asking, wouldn't it be easier to stop competitions? I don't think that's going to happen, Monty. We all like, well, I say we all, a hell of a lot of us, as we've shown here tonight with our first poll, like doing competitions. So we've got to find a way through this somehow or other. But it would be easier to stop them, wouldn't it, really? But it's not going to happen. So many comments, and they're good comments. Are club photo competitions going to survive? Well, that's a similar thing. I think yes. I think that everybody will find a way through this. You know, did we think that when digital came out, were club competitions going to survive? We just got on with it, didn't we? We made it happen. So I think that's fairly safe, personally. AI is cheating with artistic integrity. Statement, but yeah. Is AI the last nail in the coffin for camera clubs? Simon, you're a member of a camera club.
I am, but I hope we can all adapt.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the message. AI is here. It's moving at a great rate. We may not like it, but it's coming. And I think really, if you ignore it, it's giving up before you should. Because I think camera clubs have to appreciate that photography is in a process of evolution. And really, AI is part of a photographic evolution, as far as I'm concerned. And we shouldn't just give up because we find it strange at the moment.
And if we want to attract younger members, which a lot of clubs are trying to do, you know, then we're going to have to embrace this because, you know, if we want to stay with film cameras and with, you know, doing it the old way, that's fine. But younger people who've grown up with technology is just the, you know, the way they are. I mean, they're wedded to their technology, aren't they? Well, if we don't embrace that in the photographic area as well, there's no way that in 10 or 20 years there will be any camera clubs because, you know, if we stay as we are today, we've got to move with the times. But we don't have to throw away everything that we've currently got. We just need to add some extra stuff in, I think, alongside it, you know.
I think in 2014, IKEA gave up taking photographs of sets. They started to use computer-generated images. And at that time, commercial photographers were saying this is the end of photography. Not true. And I think we're in a similar situation now.
There's a couple of questions here which, because none of us are part of the distinctions process, so we can't really answer, but can you use Topaz for LRPS submissions? Philip and Mark Buckley, sorry, not Mark Buckley, somebody else has asked this, a very similar question in that respect. And as I say, it's not for us to answer on those. That is a question to ask distinctions, not us. Rosemary's made a comment, which is something that nobody else, I don't think I've picked up as a question. Copyright has not been mentioned. We had this debate just before we started tonight's evening session, actually. We knew somebody would bring the question of copyright up. So.
Okay, I'll just say, first of all, there are copyright cases being brought in America and in London. I can't obviously give you an outcome of those. I don't know what the results are going to be. However, I think there are two things. Copyright law has to be changed and updated to accommodate the digital age. Who will do that? Again, perhaps this will come out of some of these international conferences. And the second point is, how do you actually check which images have been used so that the copyright payment, because that's what you're talking about at the end of the day, can be actually allocated? So I think there are several elements to this. Copyright law needs to be updated, and the system of how we allocate payments once the copyright has been summoned. So
similar to the music industry years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that happens at the moment is Spotify. Now, most music artists hate Spotify because I think you get 0.0000 pence for every play. But you could see I'm blue skying here. You could see a register of digital artists or creators or photographers. That registry goes into a licensing authority, who then, when your image is used, they register a payment which will be paid to you once a quarter, once a year, whatever it may be. That's blue skying, but that's how I think it could turn out.
Yeah, we don't know.
And that's to some extent to some extent already what Adobe Firefly is moving towards, because they say that they've kind of gone around about this more ethically, and they're just using the kind of licensed images in the Adobe stock. And they've done that kind of with agreement from the people who've contributed the stock, and they're making stock payments and stuff to them. So I think Simon's point is being explored actively by Adobe, and if Adobe do it, it'll probably maybe establish a standard across the industry. We'll see. Yeah. There's
a couple of comments, slight questions here, which Diana Wynn and Paul Herbert are raising, and I personally, my own view of this. Separate competition categories for artificial and generated images. Yeah. And Diane is saying separate classes, AI generated images should be a separate class. Yeah. And, you know, again, we've still come back to this question of how honest are people and whether they're going to cheat, and even where that line is, as we proved tonight.
Yeah.
You know, it's all very well saying, yes, this is an AI competition, so AI is going to go in there, but I've changed the sky. Where do we sit now? You know, I've put the fur on the pine marten. Where do we sit now? So time is pressing on. The majority of the things that are still in the Q&As are more statements than questions. I'm just flying back up it now to see if there's anything that's really mega good to pull back out to see if we've missed anything. Has anybody on the team noticed anything that I should pull out?
There was one from Howard. Why did you and your second speaker, which I think is me, is it, dismiss those who didn't enter competitions as not being interested in the increase in AI techniques and skit tools? If that came across that way, Howard, I apologize, because I'm quite the opposite, actually. I mean, I enter very few competitions, but I'm absolutely fascinated by AI. I've written a book on it, and I've got more in progress, and you know, I'm here tonight and all the rest of it. So yeah, I mean, I love it. I love the whole AI space. I love learning and these new techniques and seeing how they work and whatever. But so all I was doing, trying to make the point there, was that maybe, you know, from the point of view of this being a worrying thing, the people who are entering competitions or running competitions, if you like, might see this as a big stumbling block. But I think for just general creatives who want to make images that reflect their inner vision, whether they do that using a paintbrush or a pen or an image and then a computer program or whatever, they're all just means to a final output, whether you could call that an illustration or an image or a synthography or whatever it is. So yeah, I wasn't trying to put down, if you like, that non-competitors wouldn't have an interest, because I would be one of them. So yeah.
Okay, right. So I'm going to wrap up the questions now, because we are pushing our time barriers quite significantly. And we've got just a little bit more to do. So first of all, I would like to thank Joe and Simon for their contributions this evening. I hope that you found it really stimulating and to give you an oversight in the way that we've done. And I think Simon and Joe positioned it really well for us and challenged us in the way that we need to be challenged. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much indeed. They do both work with digital imaging quite a lot, and every time we have a DI online publication, which is normally once a month, except we don't do it in August, they have an AI couple of pages in our online magazine. So they are continually keeping us up to date with what's going on in AI and bringing new things to our attention and challenging us with new thoughts and new questions. So if you want to ever dip into that, You just need to go to the DIG website on the RPS and drill down to find our publications. And it is the online publication called DI Online, and they're in there every month. So it's
Mel does a brilliant job. Yeah, which Mel does a brilliant job of putting together.
Melanie does the editing for us, so it's working well. So before we go, I'd like to just share a few more AI related things with you, because obviously you're an audience that's very interested in this. So I thought it would be worth us just touching on what we're going to do. A few weeks ago, the Digital Imaging Group announced the DI AI experiment. If you're not a DI member, obviously you won't have heard about this perhaps, but we invited members to play with AI and to generate images. And we promised at the time that we would give them a gallery to put them up on. So tonight we are actually launching that gallery. And so here in front of you right now is the website details of where you can go to upload your AI images. We're asking people, we're giving a little box to write comments so that you can add which software you use to create it, or the commands that you used to create it, whatever you think is relevant to your piece of work. And again, I must stress that this is only for fun. It's not a competition. We're just looking forward to seeing what you've created. It's not exclusive to DI members. So if others of you want to put the work up in there, we're more than happy to see any work that's being created. So don't worry about writing down the website address, because it will be in the follow-up information that will come out to you shortly. So do enter, do put your work up. Let's see what you're doing. Because I think it's all just great fun, isn't it, really? And we're not being serious about what we're doing here. So another thing that's coming up is one of our monthly AI webinars that the Digital Imaging Group run every month. We're shortly going to have Boris. Remember him? The guy that put in and won the Sony Award. And that was when I think that the general members, suddenly realized the threat of AI when that guy won that Sony Award and then walked away from it saying, I created that in AI. So he's our speaker. As you can see there, November the 4th, and the tickets are on the RPS website. So if you want to engage with us and come and listen to what Boris has got to say about AI, we'd be very, very pleased to see you join us that evening. I also should remind you that the RPS has a main AI hub. So anything that's happening throughout the whole RPS is posted on there. So it's an easy one-stop place to go to and find out what's happening. They've got the 2-day AI conference coming up at the beginning of October. And I understand, I was just communicating with Michael Pritchard about that today. I understand that they've had a lot of papers in, and they're now going to have to sift through, because he said they've actually got more people wanting to speak on the various topics around AI than they have got room to fill. So there's going to be some sifting, and then shortly they'll be announcing the program, no doubt, of what we can engage with over those 2 days. So thank you for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed this evening. And we've given you lots to think about, lots to debate. Go back on your Facebooks and tell us what you think about this evening, because we're always open to your thoughts. We do, when we send out the follow-up email in the next 24 or 48 hours, we do ask you if you would fill in a survey, because we do listen and we do read what you tell us, and then we build on that for future programs. So once again, Simon and Joe, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, the audience, for joining us as well. And we look forward to seeing more events in the future to discuss AI. But in the meantime, everybody, thank you very much for now. Have a safe journey wherever you're off to, or a good night's sleep, and we'll see you at some other AI in the future. Stay safe. Bye now.